Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist West Side congregation. Thank you for joining us here in person or watching from your home later. We welcome you one and all. I am Janet Bellamy, your worship associate this morning, and our presenter is Stacy Gebicki. I always say it wrong. Please join us in thanking Jan Walters, our host, and Roxy Kastek and Bram Kastek as our greeters this morning. Dana Sanford is our sound master, and Steve Poyani does a wonderful job videotaping our services. If you are visiting for the first time or have been away for a while, please stand and introduce yourself if you feel comfortable doing so. Or just wave from where you are and we'll wave back. Please feel free to take any of the information about us and UUs found on the back table with you. If you did not bring a drum or other percussion style instrument, there are some at the back of the sanctuary for use. Please feel free to choose one for use later in the service. These are some announcements for the upcoming week. Next Saturday, April 2nd, new members class, 9:30 a.m. to 12 noon. Brunch will be served. Bring your questions. Let Reverend Nancy know if you're coming. Storehouse West needs non-perishable food. Let's see, are there any other announcements? Okay, in that case, I now invite Bram Kastek to come forward with her animal ministry minute.
She's not right here. Can you go to something else first?
Oh, I bet we can. That'll do that, okay. Okay, we'll go on to the moment for centering. Please sit back and get comfortable in your seat. Please feel free to close your eyes or gaze at a point in space as we breathe in and out. Breathing in community, breathing out caring, breathing in love, and breathing out peace. As you continue to breathe, think about a woman's voice, a voice that comforted you, encouraged you, and made you feel special. As you listen to that voice, picture the face and the love in that face. Feel that love and comfort. Let yourself feel nourished and cherished. Pull that feeling into your heart and hold it close as you return to this space. Blessed be. And now we invite Bram Kastek forward for her animal ministry moment.
A teammate tribute. Heidi Yamaguchi and her German Shepherd dog Fuyu, canine search team on the East Coast, Heidi's USAR mission, which began in 1986, included her deployment to El Salvador, Panama, the Philippines, Oklahoma City, Nairobi, and the Pentagon, as well as to numerous other disasters, including hurricanes and tornadoes in the United States. Heidi lost Fuyu in 2002. She certified her second dog, Ando, to the FEMA Type 1 level. After 17 years of USAR service, Heidi passed away in 2003. We will always remember the high standards she set for herself, her dogs, and everyone in the USAR system. She has made our world a better place, and she is sorely missed. That's by Teresa McPherson and Sonia Heritage. Now I have a little poem. It's about a kitty, and it's called This Is My Chair. This is my chair. This is my couch. That is my bed. That is my bench. There is my chaise lounge. There is my settee. Those are my footstools. Those are my rugs. Everywhere is my place to sleep. Perhaps you would think about getting a hotel room.
Please stand as you are able and join us in the unison lighting of our chalice. The words are found in your order of service. As we light our chalice flame, let us see the worth and dignity of all. Let us see strengths and weaknesses and hear their happiness and pain. Let us hear with the ear inside our hearts and respond with compassion, empathy, and unity. Blessed be. Please join us in affirming our aspirations found in your order of service. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. Nicely done. Okay, a very special and cherished part of our service is the sharing of our joys and concerns. Please raise your hand if you have a joy that you wish to celebrate with us or a concern that you need our love and support with. I will light a candle for each one while Stacy brings the mic around.
It's a reading.
Here comes our sound master.
Batteries changed.
I didn't have the right touch.
When we were outside, Jay said something like we should think positively. So this is a joy and concern. I'll get to the joy in a second. The concern is that I have follicular stage 1. That's a joy. Follicular lymphoma cancer. And the joy also is that it's slow growing. And Wednesday, I shall find out the schedule for 12 radiations sessions that I shall have, and possibly the end of those 12 will be remission. Who knows?
Yes, it will.
In case you haven't already heard, I'd like to reiterate that today is Bram's birthday. We've been together for 60 years. She's 65. And older than me. Although she looks 27.
Melinda and Eric had a little party for me yesterday, and it was just wonderful.
joy is in sending healing light and love to others, and I just started a YouTube channel last night called Prisms of Light. You can find it under Healing Prisms of Light. And I welcome you all to join me if you want to spread love and light to family, loved ones, the planet, other countries, for peace and a loving planet.
Thank you. Okay.
This is of concern. Michelle was checking on her bees yesterday and she didn't have her gear on. She got stung in the forehead and today her eyes are swollen shut.
Oh. Oh, no. What?
I have a huge joy. This Friday in Hillsborough, or Truth or Consequences, in the Art Walk, my friend Kate is going to be presenting a play, a solo woman, a one-woman play, and I'm really excited to see it, and I'm really excited Kate's here to do it. And my concern is that she leaves, and I won't see her again for a few months till she comes back.
There you go.
Oh, thank you, Harlan. You can't tell, but I'm blushing. My concern is the same that I had last week, that we are still working on finding good, fantastic, reliable morning help for my dad. And and we are doing so much work. My mom reached out to 18 different people last week in trying to fill the time. And she is a great joy in my life. And my joy is also that I'm doing the Tarot show in Hillsborough. So thanks for sharing that, Arwen.
All right. As always, we will light one final candle for the joys and concerns that remain unspoken in our hearts. And every week, we light the red candle for those affected by racial inequality and violence. I forgot to have this put in your order of service, so it's a little surprise. March 31st is the International Gender Day of Visibility. This is a day to be happy, to celebrate. It is a counterpoint to the grief expressed on the International Transgender Day of Remembrance. It's a time to remember that transgender men are men, and transgender women are women. A day to celebrate the freedom of being who you truly are. So let us now light our candle to honor their journey. And a moment for all ages. This morning is Change Sings by Amanda Gorman.
I'm trying to do Amanda justice, so I thought I'd take a sip. This is a beautiful book. I haven't read it. I haven't seen it before. And I'd like to think that maybe I can show the illustrations as I read it. So I'm going to give that a try. And I think the best thing to do is, that's
A really good book.
Change sings a children's anthem. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planet and all its hills of histories. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts, take a knee to make a stand. I'm bright as the light that each day brings. There is love where my change sings. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distances from where and how we came, I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There, inside of me, because I'm the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the wave starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along?
Please stand as you are able and turn to responsive reading, number 573, Mother's Day Proclamation. Please face each other as we read this to each other. My side will read the beginning, and Janet's side will read the response.
Wait just a second. I just lost my place. 573.
573.
Okay.
Arise then, women of this day.
Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of honor or of fear.
Say
firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies.
Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause.
Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience.
We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow ourselves to be trained to injure others.
From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm.
The sword of murder is not about justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession.
As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the sons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council.
Let them be first, as women, to bewail and commemorate the dead.
Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can live in peace.
And each marry after her own time, the sacred image, not of Caesar, but of God.
Please be seated. All over the world, people are affected by violence. Domestic violence, gang violence, gender violence, racial violence, religious intolerance, ethnic cleansing, genocide, and war. People around the world are fleeing their countries in hopes of finding welcome and safety. The most discussed war is currently ongoing in Ukraine. The world watches in shock, horror, and fear that it could become World War III. It is easy to forget that those in power choose to start wars, and their citizens are left to fight and sacrifice. It is easy to feel sympathy for the Ukrainian citizens, to feel their heartbreak over the death and destruction. However, we must remember that Russian families too are hurting. They too are losing family members, and sanctions meant to deter those in power are disproportionately felt by the common citizen. The table before you is covered in white to honor those women who bravely went before us, demanding their human rights and suffrage. The red lantern is for Russia. The blue vase for the shared blue in the flags of Ukraine and Russia, and the sunflowers for peace. Sunflowers are the symbol of nuclear disarmament, a true statement of trust in peace. I wish that every country on earth planted sunflowers to celebrate nuclear disarmament. We'll now light a candle for peace for all. And we'll now take up our drums and have a moment of peace and healing for our Mother Earth.
Anybody want one? Do you want one? Over here.
Every week, we humbly ask for your love and support. We treasure your time, your talents, and your gifts that help sustain us. Does anyone need the basket to be passed to them? Thank you for your generous gifts. Please join us in our chorus of From You I Receive, number 403 in your hymnal. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Our voices matter, even those voices we find problematic, the voices we don't agree with, the voices who spoke of their time and place in history, the voices that hadn't yet learned a new perspective. We live in a time where we are often stuck in a trap of looking at history and historical figures and judging them by modern morals. The modern lens simply doesn't do history any good. When we do not take a critical look at history and the moral values of that time, we cannot learn from history. We want to judge the slave owners harshly, but seldom mention those who did not own slaves, but through their silence said that it was acceptable. We must remember that evil men and women do not need scores of like-minded evil people. They really just need a multiple of nice people who don't want to rock the boat and speak out against something that isn't directly affecting them. When looking at history, it is not enough to say that this practice and these people were evil without looking at those who enabled the behavior. I do not know of any point in patriarchal history that does not include slavery, genocide, war, and crimes against those deemed as worthless. We must remember that history is written by the victors, and we must be willing to do the work to find the stories of the victims, the stories of the children taken from their families and sent to schools to forget their culture, the stories of the genocides, the infected blankets, the ovens, and the man-made famines. And further, must be willing to look at an entire life and not just see the mistakes without looking to see the changes often wrought through life experiences. How many of us would like to be judged by only our teens or early 20s when we were still finding our own way? I am celebrating my 35th high school reunion this year, and I am certainly very different from that 17-year-old. I will add that anyone who has reached a level of power will not easily give it up. People in power want the rest of us at odds with each other. They encourage these divisions through extreme religious fervor, banning books, using names like TERF, racist, breeder, bleeder, and rednecks, deplorables, lefties, and so many more to keep us at odds with each other. They do better when we have an us versus them mentality. When we dehumanize anyone, it makes it easy to not listen and learn from them. Many problematic viewpoints stem from a person's fear-based perception of reality. If we allowed everyone to sit at the table with respectful boundaries in place and we truly listened, what might we discover about each other? Change is hard, often because it means that we must leave parts of our childhoods and the beliefs we were taught by beloved family members behind. We must be willing to look at our ghosts from our own nurseries and see what no longer serves us well. What ideas were our parents raised with that are just no longer acceptable to us? It is possible to change our views and acknowledge that others were simply doing the best they could with the information they had available. We were once often told that children should be seen and not heard. We now know that children who don't know how to say what they feel or want or need will bite, kick, and hit because they can't get those around them to understand. Everyone wants and needs to have their voice heard and understood. Many of us know the story of Helen Keller, who lost her sight, her hearing, and her voice at 19 months after having a virus. She was a terror until Anne Sullivan taught her how to use sign language and helped her to find her voice again. I personally teach the babies I take care of sign language so that they can tell me what they want, some as young as 6 months. An unfortunate side effect of a society that changes what is considered acceptable speech is language that is considered problematic, and the ideology behind that language goes underground. Instead of trying to change the belief through understanding it, we drive it underground. Once it is no longer seen, it grows stronger. They feel threatened by the changes. This destructive power lays dormant until a like-minded person steps forward and speaks their language. We've seen this pattern many times throughout history. It often precedes wars, genocides, and great damage to society. Understanding where a belief is coming from does not mean we have to accept or condone it, but it helps us to see where someone needs to be helped. In my work with young children, I have learned that the child person who needs love the most will demand it in the most unloving of ways. When children aren't taught how to process big emotions in a loving way that allows them to feel heard and understood, they often grow into adults who cannot feel their emotions without reacting violently and coping in unhealthy ways. Every generation that doesn't learn this skill creates a generation with even more trauma to unpack. People in pain with unhealed trauma will bleed all over people who did nothing to them. When those people grab power, they don't let go of it easily. They rely on hateful speeches to stir up their supporters. They create chaos to keep others trying to fight on many fronts, and they will kill to keep that power. Many years ago, as school shootings were becoming more common, I remember hearing a child psychologist say that boys who weren't allowed to cry tears would eventually cry bullets. Often, after yet another shooting, we hear that they are happening because we took God out of school. We didn't take God out of school. We simply refuse to violate our Constitution to elevate a Christian God over another. I would venture to say that the increasing violence is because we took the divine feminine energy off of the scales millennia ago. Before the rise in power of the Church of Rome, women had a stronger voice in religion and in society. The divine feminine energy was equal in strength and power to the masculine energy and was perfectly balanced. As this energy was minimized, taken away, and even made illegal, we lost our balance as human beings. The wisdom of women was forced underground. Women became things to be owned instead of partners. As women's voices were silenced, wars became much more common. Torture became acceptable to the church, and humans were demonized to give reason for state and church-sanctioned murder. Witchcraft trials became common, and wisdom was lost. Knowledge was thrown away, and education was a thing to mock for centuries. The elevation of stupidity over education and knowledge has happened before, and humans, with our short memories, didn't learn, so we keep slipping back into dark ages. As explorers were sent out to find new lands, the native people were seen as savages who needed to be conquered by civilized society. These indigenous societies were often very advanced. In many of these societies, men and women had equal but different roles. Men were often responsible for the immediate needs of the tribe, hunting for food, finding shelter. Women were often tasked with looking at the impact of today, but also for their children, their grandchildren, and 5 more generations of children. Men and women have different ways of seeing situations and looking at needs. This is needed. Men tend to be more linear in thought processes and see ways to get from point A to point B more efficiently, while women tend to think about how the decisions of today will affect future generations. Meeting immediate needs is critical, but so is addressing the needs of future generations. Women were the safe space for emotions, and tears were not seen as a weakness, but as a strength. As the divine feminine energy was removed over time, the sacred work of women lost stature and respect. Our strengths were now seen as weaknesses. We were now told to cut the apron strings, to stop spoiling our babies and holding and loving them. Our instincts were now being questioned and found bad. We were told to ignore our instinctive need to comfort our babies and keep them nearby. Instead, we were told to ignore their cries, put them in their own bed in another room, and teach them to be independent early. The further we travel away from what we instinctively know, the greater the trauma in children. The greater the trauma, the more violence we see, and the circle goes around and around. Sometimes in the darkest hours, voices must be silent. As World War II raged and Hitler murdered more and more Jewish people, the voices of those not yet imprisoned and those willing to help them needed to be silent. To speak out loud was to be captured, tortured, and killed. We know some of what Anne Frank endured because of her words in her diary. Irina Sendler joined with other brave people to help save Jewish children. To speak of it would have been deadly. She quietly wrote the names of the children, their parents, and the families who took the children down, and placed them in jars that were buried in hopes of reuniting families later. Even when she was captured, imprisoned, and questioned by the Gestapo, she kept quiet to save others. Those jars of hope did help reunite some families after the war. In my honest opinion, we will never survive if we remain so far out of balance. We can't get back to balanced if we don't give serious thought to what divine feminine energy is to each of us. We need to find ways to recultivate that energy. For me personally, divine feminine energy is strength. It's surviving. It's finding the sacred seeds of emotion and relearning how to feel them and then let them go. It's our innate gift of looking at a baby and seeing them as priceless without thought of a monetary career. It is our instinctive desire to create, nurture, and wait for what we bring into being. It is seeing the inherent worth and dignity of every living being, the desire for justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships with others, accepting one another and encouraging growth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the democratic process, the goals of community through peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respecting our interdependent connections and webs of life. That's the way I see divine feminine energy. I would love to hear how you see that energy. Please raise your hand and Janet will bring you the mic. There it
It's
is.
the sound master.
There it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There it
Oh,
is.
okay, good. I found the ladies' hand first.
I was just reminded of taking a women's spirituality seminar up at Ghost Ranch 30 years ago. And on the first day, I'm gonna choke up, this woman said, "Imagine how your life would feel different and your path might have been different if you were raised with the notion that the world was created by a woman, by a female."
Well, I know that not all females are good. I think of Mrs. Thomas and things that she's doing and the Representative or Senator Green and the horrible things that she's done. And there are many awful women, as well as many wonderful men and women. But something that an awful man did in our country when he was president allowed Medicare to be privatized. And I think that many of us here are probably on Medicare. And we should know that, and I can't give you what the acronym stands for. I have it written down in my files and letters at home, but it's ACO-REACH. And it's a program to privatize Medicare, giving control to people who will profit from giving us less care and giving them more money. Look into it and do what you can to stop it. And I should say, and I didn't make that clear, that it's now scheduled to start January 1st, 2023.
I love everything that you said about the divine feminine, and want to say for the space that the divine feminine is in all bodies, regardless of sex or gender combinations.
The divine feminine to me is the idea that compassion is more important than aggression. And I do not mean to say that women are more compassionate than men, or men are more aggressive than women. It's an overriding piece of it. As Kate just said, it's in all of us. You know, I don't look at a man and think you're automatically an awful person. And I don't look at a woman and think you're automatically good. So, but the divine feminine, that God is said to have had a wife named Sophia. In many faiths, Sophia is as important as her husband. And Sophia is said to be divine wisdom. So I think action with wisdom is a good thing.
I lived 10 good years in West Africa amongst the Yoruba people, and they, although they have adopted the principles of Islam and some of Christianity, the pagan gods live among them. The one that I became most acquainted with is called Oshun. Oshun Oshogbo is a river, and at a point in the town of Oshogbo is where the river becomes a woman. At that point, the river is very deep, and it moves very slowly, and people go every year in August. The whole town goes to celebrate the woman who is Oshun Oshogbo. If you go downstream, just a little ways to the town of Oko, at that point, the river is no longer divine. It spreads out, it goes over rocks, and at that point, you can eat the fish. You don't eat fish that come from the river at Oshun, where the goddess lives.
Thank you. Please stand as you are able and join us in singing Let There Be Peace on Earth. The words are found on the back of your program. Let me find my big words. Makes it a little easier. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, family are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment with peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. The words are found in your order of service. As we extinguish our flame, let us not fear the darkness. Instead, let us be reminded of the nurturing dark warmth from our Mother and our own divine feminine. Blessed be. I'd like to now share some words of wisdom from Dr. Seuss. Every voice counts. You can talk or sing or shout, loud or soft, your voice counts. You are unique. Your voice is unique. And when you join your voice with others, big things can happen. Use your voice to make change. Speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. Be a teacher. Be a leader. Use your voice to share ideas and your ears to listen to others. Maybe you'll learn something new. So open your mouth and your ears, because every voice counts. Now I invite you to turn towards each other as we sing our closing song, Go Now in Peace. Go now.